Yeah. So, Holly White, as I live and breathe. Yes. As I live and breathe. This is great to have you on here. Like I said, it's something it's something I've been getting more and more interested in. I think the first level of fitness, the easiest one to get into is the physical. I think so many of us health and we go, okay, how do I look? You know, do I look very healthy right now? And we look at everyone training, and it seems to be the kind of lowest barrier for entry is like exercise. You know, it seems like a very obvious solution to what we're doing. But I think the further you get into it, the more intricate it becomes and more scientific, and the more interesting it becomes that there's this holistic approach to being healthy that is far surpassing just working out, which I think that you have been quite passionate about. Let me just say too, I didn't know how prolific you were in so many different realms until I started looking you up more and more today. I was like, this is someone who smashed one element and was, that's not good enough, I'm going to try this and this and this, and you've been killing it. So as a way of introduction, Holly, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, perfect. I suppose I started off years and years ago as an actress, and then I, in terms of a degree, studied fashion journalism. And when I graduated, I always worked freelance. I kind of graduated into the recession, and I became very aware that with freelancing, with fashion, you're kind of always very conscious of new trends, what's happening, and it became very important for me to kind of develop my own platform to express my own ideas. And then when I turned 30, I had that kind of real typical life reevaluation, and I watched a lot of environmental documentaries and became really aware of the effect that animal agriculture was having on the environment. And I think we're aware that we all need to do our bit, but for me, it was as if it was the first time I made a very conscious decision for myself. I kind of said scale away from the marketing, scale away from maybe how I grew up or what was a traditional way of eating, what feels right to me in my heart. And I made the decision to adopt a plant-based diet. And then after 6 months, I realized I didn't know what to eat. So I had been living off like sweet potato fries and pasta and baked potatoes. And I was like, there must be more to vegan food than this. And I embarked on training, and it's taken me kind of all around the world actually, because I found I couldn't train in Ireland. So I went to London and I trained with the World Food Cafe. I went to Los Angeles and I trained in Plant Lab. And then I became certified in plant-based nutrition along the way. And then I started sharing recipes online, and I realized that the engagement was really there and people kind of enjoyed the journey. And then last year I did my
Here we go, there it is. I was watching the behind the scenes of that and I was loving it. I was just thinking, isn't that such a very tangible collection of your work? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In so many ways, it's like, look, I've been doing this thing and now they're going to publish it. And now here's this thing I can hold that I can say, I did that. You know, it must be really rewarding.
I think you can probably relate to this as well. As I think one of the key things for me was that the decision to change my diet, it definitely was antisocial. No one in my family or friends would in any way identify or even want to identify as vegan. So it was definitely me sort of going against the curve, probably for the first time in my entire life. But I was really, I suppose, being true to myself and following my heart. And I have to say, I feel as if I've been really rewarded in that I feel very privileged and lucky to have a career that I genuinely adore. I get that feeling of contribution, and I've been so lucky to be able to turn it into like my livelihood. A lot of people say with blogs or social media they might do it for pleasure, it might just be a hobby, whereas I'm really lucky.
One second.
I can say actually, we can.
Sorry, you were saying so many good things and then it just cut out for a second. I think it was just a moment there. You're saying so many people say they would love to do that and they have to do it as a hobby, but you got to actually do it as a living. And I saw in an interview, you even said, if money was no object, what would you do? And you're like, the same thing.
Exactly.
Dream, right? That is such a dream situation to be in. I think for the first time ever, we live in a world where we can start to make the rules in terms of what work is. Work for the longest time was someone paying you because you would rather be somewhere else. And that's such a restrictive way to deal with people. People, I think, are so capable and so interesting. Their nuances of who they are, the combination of their genetics, chemistry, and history make them very capable at something, at least to teach other people. And yet we have to chase the dollar, unfortunately, for most of us. And we maybe never, ever get to see in fruition our work. Your work is very much a labor of love, and
Yeah.
you get to see that, you know, and it's so attractive to see because you want to see it, you want to do it. You're like, oh God, that's cool. Maybe I can do
Yeah.
that. And so for some people, they find it scary. I'm so glad you brought it up because I feel like if ever there was a time that people would want to go digital and to do
Yeah.
something remote like you're doing, it's now. For sure, anyone that has that presence is going, I was there ahead of the curve like yourself. What would you say to anyone that wanted to start that, who has been playing with the idea? What are kind of the key points you think that are important to have?
I think that creativity and financial instability don't go well together at all. So I would always say to people, because when you are creative, to some extent, you do need to be in a relaxed state of mind. And I find if I'm stressed out, that's the first thing to go, unfortunately, is my creativity, my wonder, my inspiration. So I always say to people, like, and this is a slight thing that I have kind of against internet culture, is there is that kind of like, quit your job, chase your dreams. And I always say it might take you a little bit longer, but maybe transition over a period of 6 months, or like, it's very easy to overestimate how much we can achieve in a month, but underestimate how much we can do in a year. Like, my life in comparison to even this time last year is totally different. So I think it's really good to have, say, year-long goals. And I think for people, if you're worried about the finances, to try and make a conscious decision that maybe it's having a part-time job or transitioning from your part-time job while pursuing your creative passion, you know, and keep the pleasure with it as well, because ultimately that will shine through. And that, you know, and I'm sure that's something that you can relate to as well. There are so many yoga teachers, but those who are truly passionate are the ones that radiate, they gravitate, they have their classes full, the phone rings, and it's really important to mind your energy. So yeah, make a practical decision first and foremost.
It's funny you said, I very much see my two jobs as, it's going to sound like I have these weird thoughts anyway, but I have my stunt world, the acting world, where I do that thing and I go do it and I still enjoy that. But very much in a way, I think that's Daddy Doug going to work to support Yogi Doug so he can do all these other things and put on retreat and have money for that. And I kind of see both as very important.
Yeah.
For sure, it's really tough there, right? When you're passionate about something, but I think it's good. It's good to keep the day job for a while, so you have that hunger to do
And
it.
it gives you the discipline, because sometimes people message me and they say, you know, oh, what you do looks so lovely, but what they're kind of not aware of is that I'm about 50-50, in that I'm about 50% creative, 50% business and organization. And those organizations really only came from working externally. Like, in a lot of ways, maybe I'd love to be more creative, but I wouldn't be able to run and have a business. So I think that's the side of things. And especially with the likes of social media, like, I find I tend to follow and engage with people who share the business side of things a little bit more, the things not going wrong, the pressure of deadlines, because it's just more realistic, and it's very easy to present this kind of perfect veneer on social, like your one edited picture out of the 500 that might look perfect. But yeah, I think it's very important for people to get the perspective that anyone who's self-employed, they are 50% creative, but easily 50% business, or else they're at a stage where someone else is managing that for them.
So you are speaking my language, Holly. I have this absolute obsession with order and chaos. And the two
Okay.
things from the very first deities we know of in Sumeria, Marduk and Tiamat, we have the feminine energy, which is chaotic, and a masculine energy, which is order. And two, it's not that one is good and one is bad, but there's this balance. The Taoists with the yin and the yang is the exact same thing. And then the Egyptians with Osiris and Isis and Osiris, the same thing. So for the longest time, if you even think about Father Time and Mother Nature, you have these two worlds that are colliding, but they only work when we can find a balance between the two. We have to walk that middle line. And I agree with you completely. There's a really interesting story of Steven Tyler when they came up with the song Dream On. It was in the late 70s, 80s, and they just locked themselves in a room and took LSD and played music, right? And Joe Rogan was like, why didn't you guys do that all the time? And Steven Tyler had to say to him, because we made 100 songs like that and no one had the foresight to write anything down. That was the only thing we took out of that whole thing. And that was such a good example for me of, chaos can really give you a bit of creative license, but if no one's writing the thing down, it's no use to anyone else. You know, it may be enjoyable at the time. And that's, I think, what you're touching on, is that you have to have the organization, the schedule to do stuff, not just be like, oh, I'll do a bit of this and I'll do a bit of that.
And I think also it can lead to a situation where I think we're all aware of, like, frustrated creativity, and I always think of like a wheel churning in the mud, in that you've got all these ideas but you don't have anywhere to channel them to. And definitely retrospectively looking back, every job that I had, like even when I was freelancing, it taught me about deadlines. And it taught me about deadlines, being accountable to people, not necessarily being able to write exactly what I wanted, because it's also about thinking about your audience, what's important for them, sticking within word counts. So everything you do, it will actually help you. But if anything, it's almost kind of good if someone has some sort of a part-time job that might be unrelated to exactly what they're doing or where they want to go into, because it's teaching you discipline skills. And also when it finally does start to gain a bit of momentum, you appreciate it all the more. Like my career really didn't kind of begin until I'm 36 now, until I was 30. And I kind of look back on my 20s, and of course I kind of regret and I wish I had used that time better. And I see all these like super savvy 22-year-olds building empires, but I do know that when things finally did begin to gain a bit of traction, I was so appreciative, because I had a decade of kind of frustration and trying things, and I didn't have, say, whether it was the organizational skills, or I wasn't able to present my ideas in a format that might be, packaged up in a business kind of way. But I was able to kind of hone my creative skills. So when the time came that there was finally a platform, it was like, okay, cool, let's go, let's do this.
I'm ready. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Holly, you touched on it there with this idea of being accountable, having deadlines, especially with more people working from home now. Do you want to give us something? Because I know for me too, the big change for me was little things like getting up at the same time.
Yeah.
Have a routine. Even when the routine goes out the window, and this is coming back to the order and the chaos. When you start working from home, for me, it's important that this desk I'm at, this is the one I work at. I do other things over there, but this is the one where things happen. Any other ideas for habits and things like that?
I think the really important thing that I find is, it's not always going to be possible, but if you possibly can get up first thing in the morning and just leave the house, because most people, they don't realize, they actually think their commute's annoying, it's frustrating, it's more time that they could be in bed. But taking away, even whether it's 15 minutes walking to and from work, or to and from the tube or the bus or whatever like that, what it's actually doing is, I think it's setting you up for the day. It's giving you maybe a little bit of time to think. And I've had days where I've rolled out of bed and I've sat at my laptop, and then suddenly it's 4 o'clock. And sometimes you have a deadline, you have to do that. But as a general rule, it's not a healthy practice at all. So I find getting up early makes an enormous difference. And I always need to be accountable in some way, shape or form. So for me, for a long time, I was going to Yoga Hub, which I'm sure you've been to as well. But they fine you if you don't make the classes. But I remember for a long time, it really, really helped me kind of get over a difficult period in my life of being accountable to the 7 a.m. class. And then I found probably the happiest moment of my day was 8 o'clock in the morning, finished, walking home, getting a coffee, 20 minutes. So by the time I sat at my desk at 9, I felt like I'd done something for me. But I also realized that just even getting out in the fresh air, maybe chatting to someone, if you're going to be working at home alone, that tiny social interaction at the beginning of the day really lifts your mood.
You are speaking my language. You are so speaking my language, because I'm the same. Because if you work from home, it can sometimes I get to like Friday and go like, God, I have not seen many people. So the same thing, being in a class full of people practicing, even though yoga is very interesting because it's not even social, because you can't talk to anyone in there. Or my thing is walking. My first thing is to walk to get a coffee at the corner and have a chat to them. Same thing. It just gives me out, walking, doing something. It's like, here's the first goal of the day. Little things like making your bed, same thing. It's a low threshold goal that you can go, okay, I've done that. This is the framework from which I'm going to build on now. But this can be very tricky for people if they haven't worked from home. I know for the longest time, when we work on movies, we often have to be at work at 5:30, which means leaving the house at 4:30. So when you have days off,
carve time for yourself before that.
You're like, so when I have days off, I'm like, I'm going to get up when I want. Thank you very much. Like some sort of rebellious child. And you go, no, that you're only screwing yourself over, because now you'll be more tired. Instead, have like a generic time that you get up. Just get a time, stick to that time, have that routine in life, have the breaks, because that's the other problem. I think I'm a little bit like you. What I read about you, and especially this field that you're in, where your lifestyle and your personal life somehow intertwined. The Venn diagram of work life and personal life is quite overlapped, right? And then to know where that boundary is and to go, that's enough for today. I don't share these things. I do share these things. It's hard to set those boundaries, right?
I think a lot of it is to do with my age. I definitely think if I was 10 years younger, all my friends would be unsocial, but because they're not, I'm very conscious. One, people think I have no friends. I get messages from people occasionally, like, because they just assume I'm by myself all the time, and that's okay. That's something I can deal with. But I'm also conscious that, especially once you have kind of an audience that's not just immediate friends and family. One, I would never show any of any of my friends' children or anything like that. But equally, a lot of my friends don't really want to be on. So I think what's kind of good is your friends will keep you normal in this vibe. But one thing that I did realize is, kind of after the book came out, a lot of work came to me, and I basically kind of threw myself into it. And I was working 24/7. Like, even at night, I'd always be on my laptop, and especially with social media, there's this kind of feeling of constantly keeping going. And at the time, I needed that in my life. I needed to be as busy as possible. But as my life has kind of become a bit more normal, and I have friends who I want to see and things like that, you realize you have to put a boundary on work. And as you said, take breaks, and also know I've put in a day, something can wait till tomorrow. But when you're freelance, it's a really hard thing to do. And I have certain, kind of policies in terms of, unless I'm physically out of the country or something is totally wrong for me, I'll never say no to a job. And I kind of do what has to be done until something is done. But I also do have thresholds in that if it's a social event, if it's a birthday party or something, I'll always agree to that. Whereas I think it's so tempting to kind of think you can just kind of power on through your work and keep going.
Absolutely. It gets to that stage where it's hard when you're freelance because you don't know when the next job's coming. So
Yeah.
this idea that you want to take everything that's in front of you all the time, it's certainly the same for us with stunts. You might know that you've got a job coming in 2 months, but you don't know if it'll go through. So when you get another 2 weeks doing nights, which is really taxing on the body, you go, should I do it? Well, maybe the other job won't go ahead. I'll do it. And then sometimes you find yourself doing like weeks and weeks and weeks of working. And then, your body, I feel like my body always tells me first when it's enough,
And has there ever been an incident where you've ignored that and something has happened?
Absolutely. I watched for the longest time Little Niggles, and I find this quite interesting. Little Niggles, like maybe the wrist is a bit sore from training handstands a bit much. I'll go. You know
Okay.
what? I'll use parallettes instead because they'll take the pain out the wrist and still do the handstands. And then
What are parallettes? They're like,
they bars that sit on the ground, so you can hold them this way. So instead of doing your handstand like that, which puts a lot of flexion in your wrist, you can do that. So you can balance this way. And so I'll carry on doing the drill where I think what's really happening is my body's going, this movement we're not happy about. Can we not?
okay.
And then I'll find like my hip flexor hurts. And then if I keep ignoring that, I end up getting like the flu. So my body, like eventually my body will go, that's it, But I've had a few quite bad injuries where I've gone like, that was so stupid. Like part of the pain of the injury is knowing that it's your fault, that you ignored it. When something happens to you, when an accident happens to you, like, well, what I'm going to do. But when you ignore certain things, you're like, I haven't been doing my rehab on that. I haven't been paying attention to my body. I haven't been sleeping well and training hard. And that's one of the things I'm concerned currently at the moment is that everyone wants to train every day. Everyone wants to do HIIT workouts every day.
Okay.
And for some portion of the population, that'll probably work fine. For some, it won't. Their bodies will start not liking that. You want to mix up your training. In my opinion, my training has now changed to a position where I want longevity. That's why I'm very interested in the eating and the health, because I think that's where the good stuff is, right?
I kind of feel the slower you go, the quicker you get there. And it's taken me a really long time to embed that. But I think you'd feel the same way on that, would you? No?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. It's post 30 knowledge, I'm telling you. Post 30 kind of wisdom starts hitting in. You're like, all right, there's certain things that keep happening to me. I must be responsible for them if these patterns keep reemerging. What can I do differently that's going to have a different outcome?
Yeah.
When I came to your talk at Thrive, I just started getting very interested in fasting and the gut and how your mood can be controlled by your gut, and the fact that the brain is both in our head and in our stomach is separate entities. Do you want to talk a little bit more about your experience with food? You've already touched on that you're very passionate about plant-based diets.
Yeah.
I must applaud you. I feel like the Irish diet isn't traditionally the most vegan-like. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, and what, like, I suppose for me, I've always noticed a connection between what I ate and how I felt, and more than likely on the wrong side of things. And I'd be someone who's really sensitive if I have too much sugar, if I have too much caffeine. I feel spaced out, wired, and it really, really affects my mood. And when I was younger, I was so frustrated with that because, you'd be with friends, they'd all eat pizza and it was just a meal. Whereas for me, I kind of, from quite a young age, had to accept that I just couldn't digest things like that. And certain things like dairy, when I was a baby, my mum said that I just reacted really badly to it. And this was in the 80s in Ireland, where it was, milk being good for children was
Yeah.
a synonymous thing, and it was very difficult to find alternatives. But she said I'd break out in a rash, my tummy was really distended. And again, it's kind of like what you were saying, in that your will can try and take you one way, but your body is always gonna do what it knows is best for itself. So I think I kind of battled having these kind of reactions. And the biggest thing is kind of wanting to fit in and wanting to eat a traditional normal diet. And I think even I would have been like a closet wellness lover years ago, because like now I think it's so cool that in Ireland there are events like whether it's Thrive or Wellfest, that on a Saturday people throw on their yoga gear, and that's really cool. Whereas definitely when I was um at that really crucial stage where you're kind of finding your independence, you may have a bit of pocket money, you're starting to earn, you're socializing with your friends. But definitely say when I was 16 to 26, it was all about definitely like drinking really, really sugary things like Smirnoff Ice, eating as much junk food as possible. And I suppose some people can kind of play along with that and if even enjoy it. And my body just reacted really badly to it. So I was always interested in food. And yeah, I kind of agree with you in terms of things like fasting. Like typically, I would always try and observe at minimum 12 hours between, if I like say finish at 9 o'clock at night, finish eating whatever it is, whether it's a glass of wine or a snack or something, I'll leave my digestion at least 12 hours. And I do think um, that does help you kind of get a bit more in tune with yourself, and definitely being surrounded by food, like in tastings and things like that. It's really difficult to not kind of want to absorb all the food. But what I've noticed working with professional chefs is they will take the tiniest taste of something to check, maybe is it seasoned or is the sugar balanced correctly, and they'll move on. And I'm very conscious of when you work with food, you kind of have to respect it. And but there is definitely always temptation to kind of overindulge. But as you said, your body's going to give out at some stage.
Absolutely. And I think what I really like about things like your recipes that you put forward too is it puts a love back into food. Food has become ubiquitous for us. It's everywhere. We don't have to work for it. We don't have to do nothing. It's there. I mean, you only have to see what's happening now in the supermarkets to notice people have a really unhealthy connection to food. They don't necessarily want to eat it all, but they want it in their house. I hate to think how much food has been wasted currently on week because people are grabbing loads of food going like, well, just in case, and instead, I think it's so much better taking your time to cook something. I think for one, it shows you the respect of what a meal is. There's a beautiful part in yoga scripture with this idea that that last ingredient of love and time that you put in can be felt by the person that consumes it, even if it's yourself. That seems to be something you're very passionate about, both how it looks, how it's presented.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the things with vegan food is that it's the prettiness that draws everyone in as well initially, because you're dealing with whether it's like lots of raw, or kind of the problem also is that we all look at these beautiful like Australian bloggers living in these, stunning climates.
Australians have got it stitched. Yeah, they do.
I know. It just all looks so good. But no, in general, yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it is the prettiness of I suppose the recipes that I saw that initially made my heart kind of, sing and reach. I think presentation is so important, especially if you are promoting a product. Like, of course, it tastes delicious, but it also has to look as good as possible. I went on a retreat actually back in, it was called the Mount Madonna Institute. It's in Northern California last November, and it was hosted by a woman called Janine Roth, and she is a best-selling New York Times author who's been on Oprah Winfrey. And basically we did a whole mindful eating retreat, but the premise of the entire week was if you really loved yourself, how and what would you eat? And like she really went very deep on it. And one of the things was that we had to look at a plate of food, and of course it had to look good, but you had to actually ask yourself, how am I going to feel after eating this? And I remember one woman said, I love the chai tea, but it doesn't like me. And she said, well, who's winning here? Like, if it doesn't agree with you, if it doesn't agree with your body, like kind of what you were saying, you have to listen to what your body wants. And I think again, that can be a really frustrating journey because you know, especially within food marketing, there's so much comfort and sociability associated with how we project food. But, you know, obviously it's a wonderful thing, but it's not going to solve those emotional problems. And I think what you're hitting on there is, I think people are worried, they're scared at the moment, and it's satisfying to have full cupboards, but we also need to have, you know, emotionally, we need to keep ourselves in balance too.
Yeah, it's so funny how emotions, you were talking about growing up and wanting to fit in. It's so interesting how diets will affect, well, how our lifestyles and history growing up will affect what we think is a good meal and what's a bad meal. You know, education is such a big part. Credit to my mom. She got more and more interested in health. She's 66 now. And in the last 2 years, she dropped 10 kilograms, not by doing much, just a daily yoga practice. And I bought her this book, which was just a simple thing of what food contains, like what is a portion size and things like
Yeah.
that. From W. Smith, she's a very analytical person. She looked at that and she was like, oh, wow, okay, so I'm using way too much sugar. Okay. So she
Okay.
had little things where she took the sugar she was going to use for the day out and in a portion, and the same with the salt, and changed a few things. And it's amazing, like you said, getting somewhere fast is going slowly. And she just made
Yeah.
these little changes along the way. What kind of changes do you think people can make currently in this climate where they're going to be at home, eating more at home, cooking more, which may be a good thing?
Yeah.
Loads of recipes, but any suggestions to get started? Maybe for this is people, it's quite foreign to cook for themselves. They may be a little bit, I don't know, anxious about this idea.
I know. I think the biggest thing is you have to find what inspires you. And I'm well aware that my cookbook is on a shelf beside, say, maybe how to cook an epic Sunday roast. And I'm well aware that the only person whose plate I can control is my own. Everyone else should do whatever it is that suits them. And I think some people are not supposed to be vegan, or but I think it's really important for people to kind of follow like what feels right for them, what are they excited about. And I would honestly just type in, you know, easy recipes into YouTube and see what comes up, what makes your heart kind of jump out, and you know, you find yourself saying, okay, that could work. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate of a plant-based way of life because, you know, from an environmental perspective, the studies have been done, and the University of Oxford said that you can reduce your carbon footprint by up to 70% by adopting a plant-based diet. But also for times like this, it's really convenient because a lot of vegan staples, such as, you know, whether it's beans, pulses, lentils, dairy-free milks, things like that, they're non-perishable items. You know, you're not dealing with, say, the likes of fish that'll only last for 2 or 3 days in your fridge, and also the bacterial load is much lower. So I suppose for me, I'm lucky that this is the way that suits me to eat. But I think if people could do one thing, if they're going out shopping in any way, shape, or form today, take €10, go to the spice rack and just buy random spices, like whether it's things like smoked paprika, chili flakes, garlic, onion powder, and even really good salt and seasoning, because I think seasoning is what's going to make a huge difference in terms of whatever people are eating. Like even plain steamed chicken breast, seasoned correctly, is delicious. A simple bowl of whether it's a lentil soup, seasoned correctly, becomes delicious. So
Let me tell you, I've just got into recently onion salt, and
so
that's
cool. Yum.
it is blowing my mind. I don't
Yeah.
explain to you. It packs a punch, but it is. I put it pretty much on most of my. I make a lot of stews. I like a stew.
Yeah.
I like putting
Delicious.
something on, and then be able to do my yoga practice. And I like, again, it slows me down. I'm very much I noticed even in my yoga practice, when I stand at the front of the mat, I lean forward, and I feel like that's such an analogy of what my personality type is like. I have
Yeah.
standing down the middle. I'm leaning forward into the future all the time, going like, where to, where to, where to. And cooking
Cool.
those kind of meals makes me go, you can't, for the next hour and a half, that thing needs to do its thing. So,
Yeah.
cool your jeans.
I know exactly what you mean, because I think whatever, I'm not sure exactly, you know, when you're putting this out, but in relation to the coronavirus, I think this is going to trigger everyone's underlying emotions and feelings. And I would have a naturally kind of an anxious mind. I found a way that it's really served to work for me, in that I'm always on time. I never miss a deadline. As soon as the job comes in, I'm sort of slightly worrying about where's the next job, it's actually worked very well for me as a freelancer, because it's kept me very efficient and moving forward. But definitely we're living in times where all those kind of nerves are being kind of triggered as well. So yeah, I know exactly. I can completely relate to that, wanting to go, 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 go. And suddenly we're in a situation where globally everyone's saying stop. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, I didn't realize how fast I was going. I didn't realize, for me, my biggest thing is constantly I need to have something to look forward to. Whereas now we're in a situation where we don't know. And it's not like it's a very democratic, we don't know, like everyone in the world is experiencing the same thing. And we all just have to, I suppose, develop faith.
Yeah, I think that if ever there's been a time to learn to be present, it's now. For the simple
I
reason,
know.
I think assuming you have control of the future was a fallacy anyway. But this
Yeah.
has really brought it to the fore to go, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone next week. So worrying about it is not worth your time, you know? It's a little bit
And
like,
what are your tips for getting through, or how are you coping at the moment?
you know what, I'm a very social person. It's and way on you to flip this interview around. Nice, I like it.
Yeah, no, but I feel I want to learn. I need to know, if only for
Well,
selfish reasons.
I think we are polar opposites in the sense that from what you said you are an introvert that has an extroverted job, and
Yeah,
I'm very much an extrovert that had to learn to be introverted to do all this work. The editing is very solitary. So is yoga, and it's helped me. I feel like being alone is a superpower. Well, not being alone, not needing people is a superpower.
okay.
And I think for me, getting through this is not worrying about what's happening. Like we literally don't have that much control. You have control over your choices, and that's been the same through time immemorial. You have your choices, and you can make things better. Every choice, every decision you make, you can either take the world into a better place or a worse place. And I truly believe in that. And it's the collective decision on net what's happening. Are more people making good decisions for the world or bad? And I think that's the direction in which the world pulls. So I think now is a great time for everyone at home to slow down and to rethink things, to rethink what's going on, to have more time. If you're in self-isolation with your family, it's not the worst thing. You know, I'm someone who lives alone. I spend all day on my own, but even I have a choice. We have Skype. I can do things. I can interact with lovely people like you. I can call my mom every day if I want. You know, I can call my brother. There's definite ways you can connect with people still. And
Yeah,
so this as a prison sentence is not the right way. I don't think it is. I think this is an opportunity. And I even think in terms of business, I like that. It's funny that this originated in China because the Chinese symbol for threat and opportunity are the same symbol. It's the same letter,
oh wow.
literally the same letter. So they don't differentiate between the two because, especially in business, those two things are exactly the same. And I think the same in life. Every time things shift, this chaos emerges, we can do something to find something new about it and about ourselves. I'm having a great time learning guitar again.
Very cool.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I haven't done this thing in time.
Yeah,
So yeah, and then online courses. The concern, I guess, for people is, will they be able to make money? You know, what are they
yeah,
going to do? The government seems to have stepped in and helped out with things like that. But again, if you have a passion project like what yours started out as, this is the time. Like you've never had no excuse to develop that website, to
yeah,
start writing a blog, to start a podcast, to be more prolific, make content. We're seeing the blossoming of social media right now. For the first time, social media is actually being used in a way to connect people, whereas before it was distracting people from each other. You know, and maybe
yeah,
still in some degree it is, but now it's really, I mean, this is amazing. I don't have to be an island to talk to you and to be able to learn from you. We can do this
yeah,
over a platform like this. So I would say I'm optimistic about what this challenge gives us, and I think
yeah,
we've all just got a part to play in keeping ourselves healthy and safe. Movement once a day, 100% non-negotiable. Something, whether that's a walk, it doesn't have to be hard training. I
yeah,
I I do like hard training, but I'll do that every second day usually. Yoga every day, then a walk or something like that, and just get out the house too. I know we're not allowed to be in pubs, but get outside. Today's a beautiful day. I try to do this outside, but the wind's a little bit too much in the garden. But yeah, get outside. Like this isn't the worst thing.
okay.
I feel like we're schools out for summer, but for the world, you know, we just have to stay indoors. It's like
Uh,
a bad holiday camp.
Another thing I've really noticed as well is, obviously I'm very passionate about the environment, but it's amazing because I live in the city centre and the peace that's here. And also what's incredible is the air feels so
Mm.
unbelievably clean. And I think we also have those really inspiring pictures of the dolphins coming towards
Yes.
Venice. And like this is really giving the planet a chance to breathe. And I suppose I would really hope that certain things are reevaluated moving forward. Like maybe we will be prioritizing different things, but I don't think we will look at air travel in the way that we have before. And I'm guilty of this. I definitely fly, and I occasionally buy, whether it's like my, I don't know, pineapple in December or all of these kind of things. I'm part of the machine, but I think we can all feel at the moment how, Mother Nature is also having this wonderful time of being able to sort of slightly recalibrate. So I have to say I'm really optimistic in terms of maybe seeing, will environmental issues be prioritized from a business perspective moving forwards?
It is kind of uncanny. We went from global warming, everyone listened, global warming, and people were like, "Yeah, like
I
whatever."
know.
And then and when people are getting sick, we're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Look, we need to start working together. Let's not think about things individualistic. We have to think we are a group. Like we've never
Yeah.
been connected, and decisions like things that access the environment have to be made globally. And I think this has been an amazing coordination between countries for the first time. You know, I always used to say it's going to take someone like aliens to do this, but it's not. It's taken this virus to make us go, we were going a certain direction and we seem to be doing okay with some problems. Now, there's going to be certain things that happen that we go, wow, we didn't know that that was a possibility. Just like technology now we're really embracing. I think a lot of things are going to happen like that. And you're right. I think we're going to see a change in the environment that maybe we'll go, wow, we haven't.
I hope so. The thing is, I really do hope so moving forward. And again, that's obviously one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about, I suppose, living a vegan as much as I possibly can lifestyle. I think one of the things that holds people back is that they feel this perfectionism. Like not every single shoe I have is completely vegan or anything like that, but I always do try and make the most sustainable kind of conscious choice. But yeah, definitely I'm really excited to see kind of how will the world rebirth itself, and maybe will environmental issues be prioritized a little bit on the other side, because we can see, I suppose, in a way, how beautiful and how much we appreciate nature as well. Like it is lovely to see people out walking in the parks, and kind of, I can imagine in Italy where they're actually on lock up at home, there are people just craving that feeling of just wanting to get out in nature as well. And hopefully we'll see a rebalancing.
I want to go back for a second. You said something along the lines of like not eating pineapple in December. I've got an inkling as to what that might mean, but you want to explain eating fruits out of season, what effect that might have on the
I think
environment?
it's just, yeah, I think it's just, we're all aware of, there's food sustainability as well. And like everyone, unfortunately, not everything I buy is, not wrapped in plastic and things like that. But, I'm always very conscious of trying never to come across too sort of virtuous, because I think people, that can hold them back from, I suppose, wanting to, I don't know, even dip a toe into the vegan water, because they kind of assume, will I have to give up everything? But what I find is by doing things gradually, like once I started with my diet, then I moved into my cosmetics and made them as cruelty free as possible. But now we're also aware of plastic. And I think the next thing that's going to come out about this is also like food miles, and, how far is something coming to actually get to your plate. And it's another level that I'm kind of becoming much more conscious of. Like I'd never want to come across as hypocritical. Like people seem to be surprised that I drink, I fly, I love to travel, and I think it's really important that we can all do our own little thing and kind of know that how and where we spend our money, on a day-to-day basis. Even bringing a keep cup all kind of matters. But definitely I am hugely conscious of, in terms of my diet, just looking at where is my food actually coming from, where is it supporting, is it possible to get a fair trade option, is it possible to get a a plastic free option as well. So yeah, I think it's a whole other level.
It's kind of taking the mindful eating uh, and extending it back. Instead of just mindfully eating it while it goes into your mouth,
Yeah.
you're mindfully choosing where that comes from, how that whole process starts, which is quite fascinating. It'd be great to see people do more of that. I also wanted to touch, as you were saying these things, I was like, there's so many good things here. You talked about cosmetics.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
First, the fact that you're about my age, but look far better. I think you should give people some top tips on these cruelty-free cosmetics they might be able to use. And now that they got the free time, I saw your whole morning routine brushing your skin. I was like, Jesus, I'm lucky if I put on moisturizer. I
Yeah,
was
no, dry skin brushing is really, really good.
and
And that came
I've got psoriasis and dry skin. So I was like, this is my world. Come on.
interesting. No, that came from, I went on a retreat in Portugal, and I'm really into these kind of real hippie-ish retreats where you have, these kind of really incredible therapists that just tell it as it is. And this woman called Trixie, she turned to me and she said, you're going to have issues with your lymph. You really need to support it in the best way possible. And, you know, I didn't really know that much about lymphatic drainage, and what I kind of learned is that lymph doesn't have its own pump. It's to do with your breathing as well. And I naturally can be a bit sedentary in my lifestyle. I run sporadically, but she really said to me, that's going to be your Achilles heel unless you can work with it. So I have a rebounder that I love outside. I kind of have a little rule. I'm like, one song a day on the rebounder, and it's great for stress relief as well. But, you know, it's literally pick some really upbeat kind of dance music or something like that, throw it on, jump onto the rebounder, and it's great for stress relief. But really, she said it's so important to move your lymph. Dry brushing is another thing. Basically, you just take just a brush and you bring it over dry skin, and what it actually does is it really helps with your circulation. And then I know we're all like really into our Wim Hof method at the moment, so like finishing your shower with water, if you can do it, is amazing. And they're just little things that I find really help. And I don't get nearly as much I try to avoid gluten, but years ago when I ate something that didn't agree with me, I would find my fingers would swell, and I don't get that much now that I'm kind of supporting my lymph. I think my body's able to kind of process a little bit of something that maybe isn't as good for it, you know, in a much more effective way. So yeah, in terms of beauty, the biggest thing I try and focus on is ethically sourced ingredients, because like I think we're all aware that, you know, yeah, you can make your products at home, but also by buying some products, you could actually be supporting phenomenal communities and you know, companies like Dr. Bronner have done incredible work. Like they have an amazing mint plantation out in India, that they have this incredible mint Castile soap. And by me buying it, you're supporting communities. So I will always try and look for companies that have ethically sourced ingredients, or maybe that, you know, care about certain causes that I care about as well. There's an amazing Irish brand called Codex, and they are so into, I suppose, rewilding processes and things like that as well. I also care about where does the packaging go? Is it recyclable or not? And I think that's one place where social media is really empowering, that you can have a two-way conversation with brands. Like, is your packaging recyclable? Is it going to be? What do I do? And it's great because a lot of brands now, they want to keep their customers happy. They're moving forward with it. So yeah, in terms of cosmetics, I try and keep things obviously 100% cruelty free, because a big kind of a bugbear that I have, I suppose, with the fashion and beauty industry is there's nothing glamorous about a product if the source of it being made is chemicals in a lab being, you know, put or force fed to an animal. Like, and I think it's very sad, but we have to be aware that products are tested on animals, and that's nothing that I in any way, shape or form want to contribute. And it's scary, but you kind of do have to realize that by buying from companies that are doing this, you are in a way not necessarily supporting it, but you're not saying it's a problem. By kind of saying, hang on a minute, I'm only going to buy cruelty-free products. It's very empowering, and I think it's something I'm really happy to sort of be a part of.
Okay, first thing, Dr. Bronner's, massive shout out. They supported my retreat last year, and they've done again now. What is it, 17-in-1 uses?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of which is like cleaning your dog. So if you don't have a dog, maybe it's only 16 uses.
So I may have made up one of the uses. I was pretty sure you could brush your teeth with it.
No.
I thought you could. So I ran out of toothpaste, and I didn't even think. I was like, I'm sure I've seen that in the advert. So you know what it tastes like? It tastes like body wash. It tastes like what it is what it tastes like.
It's actually your teeth.
I'm not sure. I mean, I really went for it. I was like, I'm in now. I've already gone through it. But that wasn't my favorite day. Wasn't my favorite day. For everything else, amazing.
They
Clean.
do have a nice toothpaste though.
They make their own toothpaste. Maybe that's what I conflated, the fact that they make their own toothpaste.
Yeah, maybe use their actual toothpaste, but no, I've used that Castile soap for so much, even in terms of washing clothes. And if you're going traveling, it's a brilliant one. But I think the most important thing is they as a company, they're so transparent. And if you go onto their website, what's great is a lot of companies, you know, are doing great work, but they're not kind of pushing it to the forefront of the brands. But any company that uses organic ingredients, they're supporting organic farming, organic growth, which is wonderful as well. Sustainable packaging is really important, but definitely the Dr. Bronner's website is a good one to check out.
Well, I wanted to talk about your website. You're amazing. I look at that, I'm like, God damn it. I just, what I'm looking at behind you, I'm like, that is a good representation of your mind. Like things are in places, there's good order, it looks aesthetically neat and inviting. There was a cat who jumped out of my head because in my screen, I'm in that top corner. So the cat.
Okay.
What is? Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah, there's that in there as well. So you're right. This is my life.
the cat's in there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I want to say you've got that lovely website. It's very attractive to be on. It's got all those recipes. Do you have a list? I'm assuming you do, of like products that
Yeah.
fill this for someone like me who would like to do it, but is maybe a bit lazy to do the legwork.
I think the key thing is that I think when you are a personal blogger, what I do is I always share what works for me. So I'm very conscious of, like there are some people that might be, like say a beauty salon, they can diagnose and say, if you have oily skin, if you have, you know, this is what you might need. Whereas what I do is I just try and share what works for me and what I love. And I'm very much based on like attraction rather than promotion. If people like the look of something, great, but I'll never be like, you need to go and buy this, you need to do this, because I think what works for someone is so personal. But yeah, I do. In the beauty section, I have products, I have different kind of makeup videos and things like that. And I'm like everyone, I always wish and I feel like I should and I could be doing so much more. But
God, are you kidding? I look at all your stuff. I'm like, God, she won't stop. She won't stop, this lady. So I mean, I also want to know who takes your photos.
no. It's a mixture of like I think yeah that's kind of a personal question.
Oh, wow.
Everyone, no, but it's fine. I think because the thing is, a lot of the photography I will just do myself. Most of it is done
As
kind of
in, like,
on
you'll get a tripod and the camera set up.
pictures of me. Like in a way, I feel bad. It's anyone you can ask, and I've gotten to a
I
point where or else I have, if I'm working with a brand professionally, I have two different photographers that I work with from time to time, and they're really cool. And again, that sort of breaks up the isolation of being at home. But definitely, if I'm working with a brand, if it's professional content, I'll always get it professionally shot. But holiday snaps, things like that, um, like I've gotten much better at it. But along the way, there have been, whether it's disgruntled, you know, partners or family members going, "Oh my God, she wants another photo."
Yeah.
But
No, I'm telling you, I mean, when you find that partner that's in that same world, it's a dream, isn't it? Because they get it. They're like,
yeah, totally.
we'll take 20 photos, we'll try it a few different angles. And they also know they get to teach you. I mean, I dated, as you know, Erica for a while, and she is so good at her Instagram stuff. I learned so much from her, like in framing and stuff like that. And then the disappointment when you travel alone and you ask someone to take a photo and there's like, it's like your head's been cut off to here and there's like all the ground. And like, you're like, what? I mean, who takes a photo like that? It's an art to look at people as they walk past and go, that looks like someone who knows what they're doing with the camera, you know? Unfortunately, there's definitely a demographic age-wise. I'm like, yep, she knows. Get her over here. She'll take the photo.
I know, but then you can't like annoy people because again, last year I was in San Francisco and walking along the Golden Gate Bridge. I turned to this woman and I said, "Sorry, excuse me," and she went, "Just no." Like, obviously she'd been asked by like 20 people and she was like, "No." So I mean, then also there's this kind of fear as you hand over your phone going like, "Oh my God, my like €1,000 iPhone, are you going to run away with it?"
To a family in Disney World last year. Yeah, I mean, my friends didn't stop laughing for ages. This massive family of Chinese people asked me to take a photo, and like I kept making them go back and back and back to act as if
I think they were terrified.
And then I took the phone and just started running, but only like a few steps. But like the panic that set in amongst this Chinese family was to die for. But that is the reality. You're like, oh my God, I've just handed over this very expensive device for good luck, especially when if you want the photo of you like looking pensively out and you're like, I don't know if they're still there, you know?
I know, and I think that's the side of social. And again, I think that's another thing that we hit on earlier on is I'm very conscious that this is my job, and once it becomes your job rather than just a hobby or something for fun, I'm kind of conscious to not always assume that my friends or family want, like if we go out for a family dinner, I'm not going to take out my phone in the middle of it. And I think it can, you know, there does have to be some sort of downtime because, as you said, especially if people aren't good at taking photos, they're going to take 20 or 30, they're going to be terrible, and it just causes a frustration. So
yeah, and like it's harsh to be frustrated at them because you're like, that's not their job, you know. They're just trying to hang out.
Exactly.
That is something interesting though. It's funny because like yourself, I grew up in a world without Instagram. You know, we started our life without it. So even doing, I'm not sure how you are. I struggle to do a story if people are around me. So if I'm walking down my road, I normally have like a little look all the way up to the top of the road to see if I got a clear shot, and then I'll walk and talk and do my Instagram story. But if there's someone coming past me, I'm still like, oh, what am I doing? You know, this is a bit foreign still, you know?
I know. No, I'm aware of like I am all those cliches. Like I know I'm that annoying person, and it's very easy that sometimes, especially if you're in like a scenic place and you see like some boyfriend like taking 5 million pictures of his girlfriend, and it's like you see people and be like, oh my god, that's crazy, but I'm part of this game, I'm in this world. But yeah, I think it is really important to kind of bear in mind that it's really important to have a life outside of Instagram. And definitely for me, once it became my profession, if I was working with a company, hire a professional photographer, book it in, and there you go. But and also I think be respectful of other people. Like not everyone wants to be on Instagram and that kind of thing, but
I've got a friend who they had a baby. It's probably about a year old now, but when they just had their kid, they were like, no photos of the kid.
yeah,
And I was like, that's interesting. It's fair enough too, you know, because we just got so used to thinking everyone's images for, you know, it's up for grabs, it's communal, but it's not, you know. It's funny, we used to have to, if you filmed anyone, you used to have to give your permission, right? And now you go to any festival, like people are just kind of, it's crazy. It's amazing how it's changed.
I know.
But yeah, there we go. It's a whole new world. I have no idea who that is that's coming to my house at this time.
We wrap this up.
Yeah, maybe let's wrap. Holly, thank you so much for your time. This will be out shortly. I've had such a good time talking to you. It's been a real pleasure. I'm really looking forward to getting the feedback on this, and I would love to check in with you again as the apocalypse unfolds in front of us. No, that's
absolutely, absolutely. And whenever you put this up, I would love to give one of your followers, we'll do some sort of a competition to give away a copy of my cookbook as well. So we'll work that out.
Amazing. I'd love to do it. Holly, thank you so much for your time. And
bye. Go get your door.
Let's see what it is.